guys, welcome to Dark Horse Sports. I'm Coach Nino and wanted to do a masterclass on lunges for you today. Lunges are an amazing exercise. They have so much transfer to physique goals, to strength, to power, athleticism. There's just so much variety, so much things that you can use lunges for. But it's important to understand them so that we can get the most out of them. So we're going to break this little masterclass into a few chapters. So, what is the definition of lunge? Well, lunge or lunging is a type of single leg training, okay? And we could say the first part of that, the easiest part of that, is a split squat. So that simply means you have 2 points of contact and you split the squat, okay? That is the first definition. Now from there, we can go into a true lunge. A true lunge is one where you go from 2 points of contact, you travel to 1. So that's an actual lunge. Now you have different types of lunges. A reverse lunge would be going backwards, right? And a forward lunge would be going forward. Then on top of that, you would have a transverse lunge where you rotate. So that right there, that gives us a definition. We start with split squats, then we go to lunges. Principle of dominant muscles, okay? Now this is a good principle, not just with lunges, but just to have, to know in all types of exercise and all kinds of muscles. So we're gonna bring this little dowel over here. Now the principle is very simple. The joint that is farthest away from the center of your body, your center of gravity, is the one that works the hardest. So the muscles control joints. So the joint that's farthest away, those muscles are the dominant ones. So let's break that down. What does that mean? So look at these two squats and you'll see the difference. And once I point it out, you'll be able to notice what is the dominant joint and then henceforth the dominant muscle. All right, so here, that is a knee dominant squat, and this will be a glute dominant squat. Notice the difference there? So the knee dominant squat, my knee is going far away. That's the farthest joint away from my center of the body, center of gravity. And in this way, my glutes, my butt is way farthest away from my center of gravity. So what does that mean? Well, my quads affect my knee a lot more. So when my knees are going forward, that means it's a quad dominant exercise. If my glutes are going back, that's a glute dominant exercise. So now let's take that into lunging, okay? So if I'm forward, and I'll switch legs so you can see it a little better. If I'm going forward here all the way, that is going to be knee and henceforth a lot of quad. Now this is not a bad lunge, but it is a more advanced lunge, one that does put greater stress and load on the knee joint and the quads. So this isn't a lunge that you're always going to do, but it just demonstrates what muscle is dominant. Now if I put my hips back, then I lean forward a bit. Now that is a glute dominant exercise or lunge. Okay, so try this out. If your torso is more vertical and you lunge, that is going to be quad. If your torso and then henceforth your hips are back, it's going to be a more glute and hamstring dominant lunge. How do you set up for a lunge? Well, a lot of times people will think that, okay, I need to distribute the weight evenly between my front leg and my back leg. Well, that's actually not accurate. You want your front leg to do most of the work. So you want your front leg to have about 75% of the weight-bearing load in a lunge. The way you can test that out, kind of, again, put your weight on that front leg and pick your rear leg up, tap it. If there's a lot of weight, I'm not gonna be able to do that, right? So if I shift my weight forward, now I have 75% of the weight on that front leg. Now, whether it's a split squat or a lunge, the way you want to get into it is right here. If you go all the way down, you'd like a 90-90 setup. So for your split squats, that's what you would like. Now, if you have a mirror, it's obviously going to be a lot easier, but once you know that distance, for instance, this is a little, that's too narrow. Or if you go this, you know, now that's, you're going to go backwards. You're not going to get much out of that. So again, you want a 90-90 setup with most of the weight going on the front leg. We're going to talk about variations of lunges. So in the beginning, we had talked about split squats, the definition, right? The split squat was stable, lunge was you're moving, right? Now we're gonna give you like another category system to think about. So exercises happen in planes, okay? The first one is the sagittal plane, that's up and down. Then there is the frontal plane, which is lateral, side to side. Then you have the transverse plane, or it adds rotation to it. And usually, again, not a black and white rule, but generally, the sagittal is easier. The frontal, side to side, is harder. And then the rotation, transverse plane, is the hardest. Takes the most coordination. Not always, but in general. So let's go through it like that. So now we have two categories, right? We have the planes, and then we have the split squat and the lunges. Okay, so variation, we'll start generally. Again, generally, this is going to be from easiest to hardest. So split squat, very stable, 2 points of contact, right? That's going to be your easiest. Now with lunges, you have a forward lunge and you have a reverse lunge. Now you may think of the forward lunge as kind of the most normal, but I want you to think about the reverse lunge as the main lunge. We're gonna make that reverse lunge, we're gonna call it our meat and potatoes lunge. When in doubt, that's the lunge you go for, reverse lunge. And here's why. We'll talk about this later in the application in the next chapter, but when I step forward, right, my whole center of mass, my center of gravity is moving, and you can even tell, like, I have to control that, decelerate that weight, that momentum, and it's almost like I want to put my knee forward, make it farther away from my body. So that is actually harder, I'm moving more than if I just do a reverse lunge, okay? That is going to load up my glutes and hamstrings. Again, we'll talk about that later, especially with physique goals. It's gonna load that up more. So that's actually easier, okay? We can now add the element of elevation, a step up, or a step, okay? So again, if we're doing split squats, we'll do the front. front foot elevated split squat, all right? Now, if we did a rear foot elevated split squat, okay, that would look like that. Again, that adds another dimension to the training. If it was higher, it would be a Bulgarian split squat. And now, when a lunge, if you add elevation to a lunge, it's a step up, right? But now in that side to side, or that frontal plane, we have side squats. Because again, 2 points of contact. This is like the split squat of the frontal plane. So this would be a side squat. Okay, 2 points of contact. But now if I pick a foot up and move it, now it's a side lunge. Okay? And obviously I can then add a little bit of elevation to that if I want. Again, just another dimension, another variation. Now the third category we talked about was in the transverse plane or rotation. Now a nice segue into that is a curtsy lunge. We'll throw this one in here. You might have seen a curtsy lunge before. Here's a proper way to do it. Okay, just like that. Now, many people add too much rotation to it, and it's way back here. And now, this is a bad way to do a curtsy lunge. Notice, my knee's traveling this way, my foot's traveling that way. A lot of unwanted rotation in the knee. Your knee joint is a hinge joint, okay? Much like your elbow, right? Your knee doesn't have a lot of rotation. It's just up and down. So when you subject it to those forces, you're torquing and twisting on that knee, not good at all. So, but now a proper way to add rotation to a lunge would be, if I'm going this way, pick it up, place it, pivot, rotate. Okay? That is a transverse plane or rotational lunge. And again, you have the option to add some elevation to it, and it becomes a rotational step up. Okay, so again, give us a little bit of a review for all these variations. We have two category systems. We have a split squat, a lunge, then we have our sagittal plane, our frontal plane, and our transverse plane. So all those variations adding elements of complexity and dimensions to training. Application. So depending on a goal, how do we apply certain lunges to certain goals? So let's take rehab. Okay, let's say if you're kind of getting back into single leg training, you've maybe had some pain and you want to start incorporating things. That might, easy one is a split squat. It's very stable, but also the reverse lunge. I would go back to our meat and potato lunge. Okay, when in doubt, we're going to do the reverse lunge. Again, why? Because our hips are going to be put back. It's a lot easier. We're not going forward, we're not locomoting and having to decelerate. And because we're having our hips back, we're going to have more glute and hamstring work. And 9 out of 10 times, if your knee hurts, most likely more hamstring and glute work is not going to hurt it. It's probably what it needs. So for that alone, and you're gonna have a nice vertical shin angle. So for all those reasons, I would go with the reverse lunge. Now, let's talk about physique goals. Now, let's say you're a girl and you want to grow a nice, sexy pair of glutes, strong and sexy, right? What would I give you? Well, I would probably give you one of two, and I'll show you both. rear foot elevated split squat. Again, it's going to be very similar to that reverse lunge because we're going to emphasize the glutes. Okay, rear foot elevated. Again, we're going to have a nice forward lean from the torso. Now, if it was a little higher, we'd have the Bulgarian split squat. So I would give you those to do. But also, I would give you some side squats or side lunges. Okay, to do again because my hips are back. It's loading that one leg, that glute, really well. In fact, from the side, you can see it. See how far back my hips are from my center of gravity, my center of mass. So my glutes, posterior chains, really working there. If you haven't done those, don't be afraid of that frontal plane. Beautiful exercise for that. So if you want to get super strong, I'm going to give you an exercise where you can pack on the weight. You're going to be nice and stable. You're not going to hurt your low back. Okay? The split squat, 2 points of contact all day. Amazing things can happen with that. Instead of strength, let's say you're just trying to get size. You want some thick legs, hypertrophy is your goal. You want to get a nice pump. I would give you this lunge from Dr. John Rustin and the PPSC. A lot of times, because we walk one side then the other, right? So a lot of times we'll do our lunges that way as well. But Dr. Rustin, he gave us the idea of doing all your lunges on one leg and then going to the other. So we're going to incorporate that, but we're going to do forward lunges and then a reverse lunge, all on the same side. Forward lunge, reverse lunge. So you're going to do all of them on one side, then go to the other. Try those. Those are fantastic. Similar in that range, I would throw in there creeping lunges. So you can try these. If you're lunging and you stay low, right? That is going to build a lot of tension. Time under tension again helps build muscle. You're going to really feel those everywhere. Glutes, quads, hams, you're going to feel those. Another thing you can do is if you pump out a bunch of lunges, let's say you're going to do 10, 15 lunges, full lunges, and then the last 20, 30 seconds, just kind of hold it there. Just float it. Float the knee that's down, or just kind of small pumps at the end for like a burnout. You'll feel that one too. Again, depending on what sport you have, but if you care more about the movement than the muscle, then I would give you some of these lunges. Okay. Rotation is very important. If you're a field athlete, a team sport athlete, usually you're doing a lot of movement, you're pivoting, you're turning. You have to be in that transverse plane. Adding rotation to your training is going to be very important. So I'm going to either do rotational lunges or probably rotational step-ups. Coming through, just like that. If I want to ingrain in you the running cycle, then I would do some of these lunges. Okay, if you saw that, I'm going up with this side and I'm doing a little kick back with the other side. So that's the running cycle, that's the gait. And I'm incorporating that in this little training exercise. So this one has been called a few things. It's an anterior loaded lunge or an RDL lunge. So if you think about an RDL, it is, right, it's a hip hinge movement, come down, right? So think about that RDL lunge or RDL, and then if you just put your leg out, it's a lunge. So the nice thing about this lunge is you have a very vertical shin angle, so it's not knee dominant, it's not going to hurt your knees. You can load it heavy, and it involves your glutes and hamstrings. So you can alternate them, right? But even better is if you do a walking RDL lunge, and here's why. So when you take a step, right? But now as I go forward, I'm propelling, so I'm using that glute. If I do the other leg, you'll see it better. Right, I'm doing my RDL lunge, but I'm propelling. So, and one other thing on these, you don't want to do a huge big step. These are going to be a little smaller steps. Boom, push through, push through. Okay, those are walking RDL lunges. So as you can see, this isn't black and white, this isn't art. This is a master class on lunges. Now you may not know the specifics of what you should do, and that's okay. That's why you have us as coaches. If you want the best possible results, you want a curated program, a bespoke program for your goals, for your body, then we'd be happy to help you with that. Sign up with us and we will take you to your goals. But hope you enjoyed this masterclass. Please save it, send it, share it, like it, subscribe, and thank you very much for listening. Enjoy. Cheers.